Hello guys and welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm here with Mushoku Tensei Season 2 Episode 24 reaction, and this is the final episode of this season. Okay, so before I begin, the previous episode it was kind of crazy, and I got to know later from the comments that a lot of things were skipped. Actually, like it was very watered down, like extremely. They like didn't even adapt like majority of the chunks of whatever happened, and like what Rudy was going through. And I did get to know a little bit of a summary of what exactly was skipped in the comments. Everyone like kind of explained it to me and gave like a basic like summary, and from the summary in itself I realized that yeah, they skipped quite a bit, like quite a huge chunk of stuff that didn't really show in the anime. But I do have a better understanding. The situation is just extremely, I don't know what to call it. Like it's just very unfortunate, and just yeah, like. But either way, let's see how this proceeds from here. Like as we saw in the end, Rudy talked to Roxy, and Roxy was like, you asked me, that's all well and good, but go and talk to Sylvie first. So now they're going to go back, and I'm guessing Rudy's going to talk to Sylvie about it. And I I'm pretty sure I know what she's going to say. Like it's pretty obvious what she's going to say, but I don't know how she's going to take it though. So let's see what happens in this episode and how this concludes. Like what happens. Okay, so let us get started. Another thing, I know like season 3 has also been announced, which is quite good. I like it. So we'll be getting season 3 in the upcoming future, which is nice. Okay, so let's begin. So episode number 24, season 2. I'll be putting the subtitles and the timer here. Sync it to whichever is your preference, and let's begin. Okay, here's the countdown. 3, 2, 1, go. Hmm. What? Oh, interest. Wait. So sadness and regret. Okay. Okay, so interesting. Where are they? What the hell? Wha- Maybe they're out shopping or something? I don't know. Is it? Oh, there she is. Where's everyone? Oh, yeah. Where's Sylvie? Oh, oh, there she is. Oh, she's lengthening her hair. She's at school. Okay, okay, wait. So what Hitokami said, he was talking about the pause situation, isn't it? Hmm. Oh my god, there's so many things to say, so many things to unpack. Oh, they still don't know about Paul. Oh no. Oh god, this is gonna be so. Oh no, Norn is going to completely. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, this is. Oh god. And Norn is not going to be able to handle this. Ashes. Yeah, everyone was there, but yeah. Yeah, like as Hitogami said, that he's gonna regret it either way. Even if he goes, even if he doesn't go. Like if he didn't go, Paul would have kept dungeon delving and kept trying to find Zenith and would never find her. He was going to keep doing it. But Paul would have been alive, but he would have. Oh, oh, she took the. Still. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. So, except Anil and Lise, I'm guessing everyone will be leaving. They'll probably stay here for 1 or 2 days then. Tch. Mm. Yeah, she was a tank, so she's taking this a bit harder. Yeah. Mm. Well, she had obviously she wanted her to know that because we know what's going to come after this. So, oh my God, here we go. Oh God. Well, she probably realizes, but I don't know which extent she realizes what happened. Oh God, this is gonna be a very weird conversation. Why are these two here? Hello? Um, like, okay, this one, however, I think you need to tell her that whatever happened before that. Okay, why are the kids here? I don't understand why are these two here. I guess. Oh, you know what? Okay, you know what? No, 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 no. It's okay. I was gonna say like they're kids, but I guess then they also need to know this. I feel like since the anime skipped so many things, this conversation seems so weird, to people who only watch the anime. Lit. Okay. Yeah, about that. She's 50 or something, isn't she? Oh, oh my God. This. Oh, this is so uncomfortable. I just don't. Oh God. True. Yeah. I just thought it's a matter of time. That's hilarious. Yo, she's like, oh my. Okay, wow. Yeah, she immediately realized. Like when they came together, which is true, I guess, because she always talks about like master this, master that. Hmm. Well, like obviously, I kind of expected her saying, something like this because, like, we've seen this before as well. Sylvie herself said that, but still, the whole thing in itself is just so uncomfortable. The situation. It's your fault. I don't think that forgives it, but still. Yeah, like no, no, no. I am with Norn actually in this situation. Like yeah, I understand, but still, the whole situation is just so messed up. If this happened in a different way, it would have been okay, I guess. But the scenario was so messed up in this how this whole thing happened. It's just so uncomfortable. True. 1 month from now, okay. No, I think that was correct decision from Roxy. Hmm. Like you shouldn't, like like she's like your happiness comes first, then mine. Like I can understand that. Oh, is it? I think so. Hmm. Oh, there you go. Imagine this kid is another isekai kid from Japan. Like, here isn't green. Oh. Because everyone will, like because green hair is, the whole thing with spared. That's why she's like, damn. Even the cowlick is the same. Oh, the yes, you can see Alex. So she's an half elf. Wait, oh, so girl. Wait, I didn't. I wasn't paying attention. Girl. Yeah. So. Hmm. False grave. Long time. So there's a little time skip. Yep, girl. Hmm. Lucy. Yeah. Sylphie Lucy. Just like you did. God damn. Hmm. Yeah. Like sure he's probably going to fall into more problems in the future as well, but you know, if you learn from it. Oh, wait. Oh, it is. Succession. Thank you for watching. Oh, that. Oh, there you go. For season 3. Yep. Yeah. Right. There you go. Okay. So obviously, since season 3, like usually, like you can see like the seasons are like 24 episodes, like broken down into two parts, and that's what has been happening up until now. So I'm assuming season 3 will also be like that, 24 episodes, and it'll probably have like a little break in the middle, like we usually had, like 12 episodes, a little break, 12 episodes, kind of like that. Um, so right, that's great news. I was kind of like, obviously I knew that it's going to have another season. Like I doubt they're going to stop after coming this far. I'm sure they're planning on a full adaptation. But like I was like, oh, hopefully, like the announcement comes quick, and they literally announced it at the end of this episode. So that's quite good. So I'm assuming sometime next year we're probably going to get Mushoku Tensei season 3. Um, but yeah, so that's good. And yeah, so that was this final episode. Now, like I said, I feel like like the today's section where like Norn was blaming Rudy for the when he said that like the whole thing, explained it, and she said quite a few things, and I was like, like I said, the previous episode, I had so many questions. Like there was so many things. I was like, why did it go like this? Like why did Roxy like do something like this in that type of situation? And I had a lot of like questions, and in the comments I got to know that the way they just brushed over Rudy's suffering was just like like just something that has absolutely baffled everyone. In the light novel, as far as I've heard from others, it was way more worse, to the point that Rudy was probably going to like do something to himself, that kind of situation, which was nowhere in the anime. I didn't see that in the anime. The anime, yeah, obviously he was depressed, but that was just it. And I was like, couldn't Roxy have like taken care of this situation in a different way, instead of this? Because in the anime, it seemed like she just went in, talked to Rudy for 5 minutes, and then immediately she did that. However, I heard from everyone that the light novel goes so much deeper into this. As far as I could understand from the little bits and pieces of the summary that I've read in the comment section of what happened, the situation was with Rudy was extremely bad. And I mean extremely. Like I said, he would have done something to himself. And Roxy tried, as far as I've read in the comments, for at least many days to convince him to let him get out of the house, to help him out by staying with him, like trying to like cheer him up, trying to make his mind go into something else, not to dwell on his sadness. But Rudy like kept blaming himself, and it escalated to such a degree that it's all there in the comment section. Like there's like one comment that very nicely like summarizes everything, and I was like, damn, like this was nowhere in the anime. And that's why the anime seemed so like like as if like they completely rushed into the whole thing, and I was so baffled with Roxy's actions. I was like, what, why? Like she just barely talked to him 5 minutes, and suddenly that. I was like, wasn't there any other better way? The thing is, there there were better ways, but none of them were working. And I think that like at the very end, as far as I've understood from the comments, this whole thing happened, but they completely brushed over that and all that stuff. So I feel like people who just watched the anime and didn't really get to see the extent of Rudy's sadness and his despair, his the whole thing, today's episode must be so weird, because here in the place where Non was talking about like what the hell, why did you do this and that, I was of the similar, what can I say, opinion as Non. If I just watched the previous episode from the anime and I didn't know the the other stuff that happened. I would have been like, you know what, Non is correct. I still think Non is correct, but the thing is, as they have skipped so many things, we don't know the extent at which the whole thing went. So I feel like a lot of people will probably, I don't know, be very like, what can I say? Probably won't be able to like understand the situation after watching the previous episode and then watching this. So anyways, I don't know if I'm like making sense, but I feel like this episode, because I read the comment section and read the stuff that they apparently skipped, since I read all of that, this episode I took it in a different way than I would have taken it if I didn't know that. I still think, obviously, like, the situation obviously is not good at all. It was so uncomfortable, so weird. But at least now I know the big reason behind how the whole situation escalated this far. Like, which the anime completely skipped, unfortunately, in the previous episode. Either way, yeah, like that's the thing. But overall, I would say that I'm still like kind of leaning towards Norm's like thought process. I don't like blame her for blaming Rudy like that, and I don't blame her for getting mad at Roxy either. And I don't blame her in the end as well, where she was like what the hell, like, big brother. you know and I'm pretty sure Rudy also accepts all of that. Roxy also accepts all of that. But yeah, like, where's that part? This part, for example, in the end, where Non was like practicing with Rudy, she's like flailing around wildly, and here where Sylphie's like, oh, come on, like, like, Paul also had two wives, like what about that then? Like, what about your dad? Like, so. And Non was like, yeah, but still. And I was going to say, like, come on, Sylphie, even though Paul had two wives, but I guess Paul's situation was similarly bad, I guess, if I think about it now. Like, the way he, if you remember, in first season. Oh my god. Yeah, I just realized Paul's situation was equally bad. The way the whole thing happened. I would say Paul's situation, it was even worse than Rudy's. Like, Rudy was depressed, and like all of that stuff happened in the previous episode, and and Roxy, without any knowing how to do, help out Rudy, even after she tried for so long to properly help him out, she resorted to that. While, as far as well, Paul was even worse, now that I'm thinking about it, because as far as I can remember, Lilia deliberately kept the door open, if you remember that, as far as I can remember, and Paul just wasn't able to restrain himself. So yeah, you know what? I guess Paul's situation was worse than Rudy, if I think about it like that. Like, up until now, I was going to say, like, yeah, like, Paul's situation is same, but the way this happened was so uncomfortable. But I completely forgot how Paul like got married to Lilia. That in itself was just so bad. If I think about it now, it was even worse than Rudy. So yeah, you know what? I guess I cannot really say anything. Like, at least Rudy's situation is not like Paul's situation was just absolutely, what can I say? Like, number one, Lilia herself deliberately kept the door open, and number two, Paul himself was just like, yeah. So even though I guess at the same time, if you remember, they kind of explained that Paul was the one who actually, if you remember, like the very first time, Paul was the one who did something to Lilia back in his adventuring days. Yeah, Paul was a scumbag, like absolute scumbag. If you think about it, like, I guess comparing him to Rudy is not really something like I should do, because Rudy's at least way better than Paul. Like, Paul was just unhinged completely, like in a bad way, just completely, just So you know what? I'm gonna take my words back. At the end, I was like, yeah, like Paul's situation is same, but Paul's like the whole scenario was different. This scenario is different. But now that I'm thinking about it, Paul's situation was different, obviously, but it was even worse than Rudy's situation. Paul deliberately did that whole thing. So because he couldn't restrain himself, like that whole thing, and even like if I exclude that whole scenario, like I said, what we heard from in the Paul's backstories back in his adventuring days, what he did to Lilia, if you remember, like that is even more worse. That's the worst thing someone could have done to someone. So I you know what, I'm just going to not talk about this, at least not compare this situation with Paul's situation, because if I think about it and if I think about the other stuff that Paul did, Paul was way worse than Rudy, like way worse. But anyways, yeah, but one thing I agree with Norn is just that the situation, the way this whole thing went was just so uncomfortable, and and I feel like Sylvie also feels sad for the same thing, because as Sylvie said, if you remember, Sylvie was like, oh, I was thinking it was a matter of time, but I feel like Sylvie expected something way different, in a different way. Like maybe one day Rudy would come and be like, oh, like that happened here, that, oh, Sylvie, like I like Roxy, I want to get married to her, and just that. And I feel like Sylvie would have been able to accept that way easier. But this situation, if you think about it, is so much worse, because Sylvie's pregnant, she's here waiting for Rudy. Rudy's outside there fighting. This whole thing happened. He came back, and he breaks this news to her. And like, as Non said here, like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, while we have been waiting here every day thinking about you, praying for your safety, you know you're doing this, you know but but we know Rudy's part of the story as well, like all that stuff. But yeah, like the way this whole thing went is just so uncomfortable. That's the main thing, because as Sylvie says, that she expected this happening and she was ready for it, but just the way the news broke to her, and the way, like what happened here is just like something just very, very difficult to understand and properly ingest, because as we saw, like she as they said, like like it is true, like she was here waiting for Rudy. She has a baby, like coming. Rudy is going to be a father, and now, like, just before that, he comes in and drops a news like this. um I know what, another thing, I feel like they would have been able to take this way more better if that whole part didn't happen and Rudy just came here and be like, oh, I want to marry Roxy. It would have been way different. But then after that, when he explains what happened back then, that makes the situation even more uncomfortable. And I can and here's another thing, there was one thing I was kind of thinking. I didn't really think about it that way, but like Non and Aisha was there, and I was like, why are the two kids here? Like, how old are they even? You know, and I was like, come on, isn't this so, like, just, and then when he breaks the news, and when I, like, Non completely flips out, then I was like, you know what? I feel like if they didn't tell them and kept them in the dark, that would have been way worse. But then at the same time, I was just like, come on, it's just so. But you know what? I think I'm actually, like, like, I took my, like, what can I say, initial thought back. Like, I think him breaking this in front of Non and Aisha was the correct decision, because if you think about it, these two obviously are kids, but at the same time, they are part of the family, and they also need to know what exactly happened with Rudy. Like, if he hid this from them, I feel like it would have been, I don't know. I just don't know, man, what to say. This whole situation is just so weird and uncomfortable. I myself don't know what would have been the correct way to do this. There's no correct way to do this, basically. Like I'm trying to think, like, was it okay for him to tell everything in front of the kids, because they're literally kids, and then I'm like, first I'm thinking that, and then I'm suddenly thinking like, oh no, you know what, if he hid it from them, that would have been way worse in a different way. And I just don't know what is correct or what is incorrect. This whole situation is messed up, and I don't think there's any correct way to have handled this. Every single way was wrong, and every single way, but they had to do it either way. So, in the end, I'm like, you know what, Norn and Aisha was there. I think it was a better decision for them to be there, at least, because they also need to know what happened over there and what Rudy did. Because because I was thinking, if he hid it from them and later on told them, I feel like that would have been way worse. And I feel like Non and Aisha would have taken that in a way different way, and they would have been like, oh, you hid it from us, why? Like something like that would have happened. I feel like it would have been, it would have opened another like bad type of scenario. So whatever happened, it resolved itself properly by the end of it. So I guess we could be we should be happy with that. Oh boy. But it was hard. This whole situation was hard, especially hearing Norn just completely, like, what can I say, like, just completely say what was on her mind, and Rudy realizing that she's actually correct, you know because true, like, whatever she said, even though the situation was like that, she isn't really wrong at the same time. But like, we understand why the whole thing happened, but still, for Non, who was here, who wasn't in that situation, she's obviously going to say stuff like that to Rudy, because she was with Sylphie and she would sympathize more with Sylphie, obviously. Like, that's completely normal. And I agree with Non as well. So yeah, you know what? Let's just stop thinking about this, man. Like, come on, like I said, I just cannot. I still cannot wrap my head around all of this. It's just so messed up. Like, I really cannot. Like, you know what? Whatever happened, it resolved itself in a good way. So I'm just glad about that. Like, it didn't become like some, like, this is exactly why I don't like watching shows like this. Like, not shows, but this is just a small part of it. Obviously, Mushoku Tensei is way different than this whole thing. Mushoku Tensei is a story of Rudy, who was a failure in his previous life, doing something better for him here, making mistakes, and then picking himself up. So it's way different. So I love Mushoku Tensei. I still love it. But this is exactly why I don't watch shows which have, like, like, for example, this whole section is 3 episodes. The way the whole drama and the whole uncomfortableness happened, this is why I hate watching shows which is completely themed around that. For example, one such example is Domestic Girlfriend. Like, these 3 episodes that was so uncomfortable, I feel like shows like that, like Domestic Girlfriend, are basically themed around that. Like, these 3 episodes is literally the whole theme of shows like Domestic Girlfriend. It is absolutely insane, and I don't know how people can watch that. Like, these 3 episodes, not 3, I would say 2 episodes maybe, made me so uncomfortable, and I just cannot. I'm like, come on, man, I cannot handle this type of drama. No, like other type of dramas, like like love triangle dramas and other, like, dramas are fine, but this is the most, like, uncomfortable and the most weird type of drama just that I cannot stomach and I cannot, like, digest. That is why I stay 100 miles away from shows like that, like Domestic Girlfriend and other shows like that, which is completely themed around this type of things. So yeah, but obviously that's not what Mushoku Tensei is. Mushoku Tensei just brought this up in these 2 episodes, and it was extremely uncomfortable. I'm glad this resolved in an okay-ish way, I guess, where everyone is okay with it now. But still, as an audience, I was just like, come on, I cannot stomach this. This is just so uncomfortable. Like Paul's situation is sad and all that stuff. I could digest that better than this whole thing that happened. You know, it's just so uncomfortable. Either way, you know what? I'm glad this is over. Like at least this part of Rudy's story is over. I don't know if something like this is going to happen in the future as well. I doubt it's going to happen because this is one thing I can guarantee. Like in guaranteed manner, I can say this: Rudy makes mistakes, but he doesn't repeat his mistakes. At least up until now, I've seen that. He makes mistakes, and after he understands it, he works on it and he actually improves. So I doubt he's going to make the same type of mistake again. And now that we know, and I'm pretty sure that Eris is also going to get married to Rudy. I'm 100% sure now, especially in the end when we saw her. Like it's pretty obvious what's going to happen. And I feel like Sylvie and Roxy wouldn't even be surprised at this point if suddenly one day Rudy comes in and be like, "Oh, I want to get married to Eris." I feel like they would have been like, "Yeah, you know what? Whatever. We expected this." I think they're going to react like that. So I don't think whatever will be happening with Eris in the future when she comes back, I don't think it's going to be this uncomfortable. So, and I think this whole uncomfortable bit is done and dusted, hopefully, that we don't have to repeat something like this again. For the love of God, please. I cannot. Yeah. So there you go. And that was today's episode. So, I forgot to mention, like I was just talking about Rudy and his whole thing. The other main thing of today's episode is Paul. As we can see that Non was obviously it was just so difficult to tell her what happened. And in the end, at the first, you can see Non was like, "What the hell?" Like you were there with him. And then when he saw Rudy's hand, cut and everything, she realized the extent, and she accepted it and like stomached the whole thing. And she knew that she couldn't like lash out at Rudy because Rudy himself would have probably died. In a dangerous scenario like that. So it was very tough to see her understand, like, because you could just imagine the amount of willpower it took her to accept the fact that what happened, and just yeah. And what the sad thing is, like, Aisha had Lilia. Like when we saw like Lilia was like, they were like, "Oh, you don't have to hold back because of us." So Aisha went and hugged Lilia and started crying. Non didn't have anyone here. Zenith was there, but Zenith was just, as we know. So she had to take it on her own and accept it on her own and get over it. And there's another thing, like obviously you need to realize that Aisha was obviously way closer with Lilia than Paul because of the mana teleportation disaster incident. Non went with Paul, Lilia went with Aisha. So Non and Paul had a more, like, I would say, like, a more familial, like, father's daughter relationship than Aisha and Paul. So for her, it's definitely sad, but Non was the one who got affected the most. Non along with Rudy, because I would say Rudy's relation with Paul was way stronger than Rudy's relation with Zenith, which is pretty obvious because of the mana disaster and everything. Rudy still kept, like, was in contact with Paul, and that whole thing happened. So Rudy was way closer to Paul than Zenith. Similarly, Non was way closer to Paul than Zenith as well. So for these two, Paul's death must have been devastating, like extremely devastating. And they didn't have anyone, especially Non. Like Rudy's like grown up now. She can, like, he has people who, like, and we saw like the whole thing that happened, like, like Roxy, that whole thing that happened in the previous episode. Like he took it extremely hard. Similar with Non as well, you can see, like, but Non didn't really have anyone to like rest her head on and cry upon. She had to take it on her own. So which is also very sad, just seeing that whole thing. You know what? From this, I can see, like up until now, we could see that Non was way more sheltered and way more, what can I say? Like, way more like in a shell than Aisha. I think this is going to completely reverse now, because Non had went through so many things. I feel like she will be, as we saw, she will be she will mature way quicker than Aisha, because mentally she went through just heaven and hell. She just went through everything, like in these few years, as a kid. While Aisha, I feel like I don't know what's going to happen with the whole Aisha situation, but I don't like the whole Aisha's, like the tendency of being like, oh, I want to help out Rudy, I want to, like, and Lilia's the same. You can see Lilia's literally like, oh, you have to help. Like, I can understand, like, Lilia being like that, because she still thinks herself as the mistress's, like as a mistress, and like, and Aisha thinks of herself as a mistress's daughter, because we saw all of that thing as well, and that's why they try to kind of like hold themselves back, that kind of thing. I think this whole thing was going to get highlighted maybe in the future seasons, because they, like, Aisha needs to, I don't know, have an identity for herself, instead of just being like, oh, I'm here for taking care of Rudy. And Lilia being the mother, she's also the same. She's like, oh, you have to take care of Rudy, make sure that everything is okay with him, like, and Rudy has himself said that, come on, like, you don't have to be like that. You can like, you have your own life, but she has that. This is another thing I feel like we'll have to tackle later. But I think Non, from here onwards, Non will be okay. But I'm still concerned about Aisha, because I feel like Aisha's situation is just still. I feel like Non will be fine from here onwards. She took, like, everything that came to her up until now, and I feel like from here onwards she will have to grow up. you know but for Aisha, I feel like Aisha's situation still needs to get resolved. Anyways, that's another thing I want to talk about. What else was here? Yeah, I think that's it. Roxy and Sylvie talks, and yeah, there you go. Oh, and the child is born, Lucy. I think that's her name. Yeah, and she looks exactly like Rudy. She has. I think I can see here. Where is the scene where she was born? Where is that part? Just a minute. Let me check. Okay, yeah, she has Rudy's hair and everything, but she has, I think, Sylvie's eyes, isn't it? I think so. Yeah, she has like Sylvie's eyes and Rudy's hair. However, her hairstyle is similar to. It's very, like, like, very very interesting. Like, her, like, obviously she has both her father and mother's, like, characteristics. Her hairstyle, you can see it's more like this, which is like Sylvie, but at the same time her hair color and her hair, like, like the cowlick and everything is like Rudy. She has Sylvie's eyes. She's literally looks like a mixture of, like, Sylvie and Rudy, which is obvious because she's their kid, but still. And obviously her ears are, like, not as pointed as Sylvie. I think, I guess that kind of shows she's an half elf. Yep, it's not as pointed as Sylvie. Like, it has, like, you can see, like, the lower part is like human ear, but the upper part is a bit pointy, which obviously is not like an elf ear. Elf ear is like completely flat like this, but she's more of a, like, like a rounded flat type of thing. So yeah, this shows that she's an half elf, I'm assuming. Half, or wait, Sylvie, I forgot. Is Sylvie like no? Sylvie's parents, are both of them elves? I don't remember. Sylvie's father is an elf, isn't he? What about her mother? I don't really remember. I'm not even sure, like, if, like, she, like, Lucy's either like an half elf or like maybe like a quarter elf or something like that. because I don't remember Sylphie's mother and father. Is Sylphie a full elf, like a pure elf, or is she like a half elf? I don't remember that. I think they explained it, but I've just forgotten. Anyways, and another thing which is Sylphie said, like, thank God she didn't get my hair, which was green, because as you know, the whole discrimination against like green hair, like supers and everything, and she's glad that she won't have to go through that, at least. And there you go. That was today's episode, the final episode, and yeah. Okay, now let me talk about this episode scene by scene. In the very first scene, you can see Rudy like rushing to his house, and okay, this part, I don't know what Rudy thought here. I think at the very end, when he was close to his house, it probably came into his brain that, wait a minute, Hitogami said that you're going to regret it. So he was like, what I went through was sadness, not regret. So I think this is why Rudy thought like maybe something happened to Sylphie and my family while we were outside. So that's why he started rushing. And when he went to his house, he saw that there was literally nobody there, and he was freaking out. He was like, oh my god, like, is this what Hitogami was trying to say? Was this going to be my regret? And I was like, wait, really? Like, so the regret he was talking about wasn't the regret that he went through? And then we later on see that Aisha comes in, and she's like, oh, like, Norn is out to school. And then we see that Sylphie was out collecting firewood. So Rudy's like, everything okay? You're hurt or something? Like, is everyone else over there okay as well? And she's like, yeah, everything is fine. Like, what's happening? And then he's like, oh, thank God. So yeah, this is the thing I want to talk about. Another thing. So this was a false alarm, I'm guessing. Like, Rudy thought, like, I can understand. Rudy thought, like, yeah, the whole thing I went through with Paul was sadness. It wasn't regret. And that's probably why he was like, maybe Hitogami was trying to mean something else by regret. Maybe by that, maybe he meant something's going to happen to Sylphie or something. That is why I would feel regret, and that's why he started rushing. But it was a false alarm. Because, here's the thing. The way I interpret Hitogami's words is that Hitogami said that you need to go there. No, sorry, Hitogami said you shouldn't go there. If you go there, you're going to regret it. And Rudy's like, but what if I don't go? Will everything be okay? And he's like, no, you're going to regret it even if you don't go. So obviously we know he would have regretted it if he didn't go. If he didn't go, Paul would have been alive, obviously, but he would have regretted never going and helping Paul, and they probably wouldn't be able to find Zenith at all, and maybe Zenith would have died eventually or something like that. That would have been the regret if he didn't go. And I'm sure, like, Paul wouldn't have taken this in a very good way. He probably would, after losing Zenith, he probably would, I don't know, completely break down as a person. And he would, like, walk in the path of destruction completely. I could see that happening. So at the end of the day, it would have been a huge regret if he didn't go. However, if he went there, as Hitogami said, if you go there, you'll also regret it. The regret would have been probably, as he said, the Paul situation isn't regret, it's sadness. So I'm assuming by regret, Hitogami meant the situation with Roxy and Sylphie, I think. Am I correct? Was that the regret? I think, because Rudy's right. That wasn't regret. What happened with Paul was sadness. It was grief. It wasn't regret though. So, no, wait a minute. You know what? I think there's another thing which is regret. Another regret I can think of. One regret is obviously this. Another regret is that his realization that he, as he says in the end, I never grew up. I never was able to appreciate my parents, and I never was able to appreciate my father here as much I am able to now that he's dead. I think that was his regret. You know what? I can see that. Like, I don't know about the whole Roxy Sylphie situation, but I think this is one regret he had now that he went there. That is his regret that he was never able to, because as we saw in one of the previous episodes as well, he was never able to connect with his real parents in his real world, and he lost them. And even after coming here, he was acting as if everything was okay, but he realized he wasn't able to connect with his parents and wasn't able to connect with Paul at all, and only after losing him he realized like of like how much he regretted it. He regretted it as soon as he lost Paul. He regretted never, at least like never trying to properly connect to him and be a proper son. I think that is his regret. Like, I'm not really sure about the Roxy Paul situation. Obviously, sorry, Roxy Zenith. God damn it, what's her name? Sylphie. Roxy Sylphie situation. Yeah, he definitely regretted it, but the regret, like little by little, as they talked about it later on, it's probably going to get like resolved in the future. But this is one regret he'll forever have, because now he cannot get back Paul. Paul is no more, and he won't be able to correct his mistakes and connect with him as his child. So this is one regret he'll always have. So I think this is more like it. This is probably the regret Hitogami was talking about. Anyways, so he comes here and like he hugs Sylphie and everything, and then like everyone is there. Like, what's her name? Non comes in, and Non is like, oh, everyone's here. Like at first she looks at Zenith and she's like, okay, Zenith is here. Then she looks at everyone and she's like, where's Paul? And this is where Rudy tells her and brings out the sword, the gauntlet, and all that stuff. Paul says, like, and the ashes as well. And at first you can see Non wasn't able to accept it. Non was like, you were there with him. What happened? And like, why? Like, and then she immediately saw Rudy's hand just gone, and then she realized like how difficult it must have been, the whole situation, and she stopped. Like, I feel like she would probably have like blamed Rudy here, but then when she saw Rudy's situation, she realized that if I blame Rudy, that would not be good. Like like that would have been wrong of me, and she herself probably restrained herself from saying anything. And he realized that they tried their best, but nothing could have been done. And like, it's crazy to see that how little by little it clocks in her head, and she understands, and she's like, oh, so even if you couldn't do anything, that would mean nobody could have saved Dad, and this would have happened either way. And she starts crying, and yeah, and then she says, can I take the sword? And Rudy's like, okay, you can take the sword, but having the sword means you have a sword in your heart as well. Where's that part? Do not use it without a good reason. When you carry a sword, you need to keep a sword in your heart. You know what is hilarious? Rudy's voice actor, if you know, is Gintoki's voice actor from Gintama. Gintoki has a very similar quote in Gintama as well, where he talks about the sword of one's soul, like Gin no Tamashi, or like the silver heart, and the sword that is in someone's soul. He talks about that, and he says a very similar thing here, where he talks about how there's a sword in your heart and you should never use it carelessly, and you should never fall down because of that, so that sword will always keep you straight. Something like that he says. As far it's been a while I've watched Gintama, but I remember that quote. Like, I don't properly remember the whole quote, but he says something like that. This is actually so hilarious, because Rudy, being the same voice actor, having the same voice actor as Gintoki, like he's saying this here to Norn, like talking about the sword in his heart. Yeah. Okay. So anyways, he says that, and Non is like, okay, I understand. She takes it, and you can see Zenith takes the gauntlets and like hugs it. But obviously Zenith is still in that situation. Either way, then they're like, okay, so Zenith will be staying here, and Rudy's like, I'm sorry to everyone, like, I might be inconveniencing, like, but she will be here. And Ron and Aisha's like, no, it's fine, completely fine, like, it's okay. And so Aisha's like, wait, so Mom, you'll stay here as well? And she's like, yes. And this is where Aisha's like, like kind of fidgeting, and she says something like, oh, like, so does that mean the amount of like chores that I do. Where's that part? Um, will we divide the chores then? Again, this is, I think, something that needs to be resolved, and I think this will probably happen later. You see how Aisha's like, so will we divide the chores? In Aisha's head, like the way Lilia has always told her that, oh, you need to be of use to Rudy, you need to be of help to Rudy, she thinks her only like worth is like being of use to Rudy. That is literally how Aisha's head works. So for her, going to school and all that stuff means nothing, as we saw. She's like, I don't want to go to school. I just want to be of help to you. You know, from a very young age, she has heard this as well, and she's heard other people discriminating against her as well because she's a mistress's child. If you remember, like, you know, she said something about like her grandmother, which is, I'm guessing, I'm guessing Zenith's mother or Paul's mother or something like that, saying something like that to her. So she is like, my only worth, self-worth, is being of help to Rudy. So here, as soon as she realizes that Lilia will be staying here, she's like, oh, will we divide up the chores then? And Lilia's like, yeah, like we'll talk about that later. So in her head, her worth will reduce if her mother stays here with them, because her mother will be also taking care. At least that's how I see it, and at least that's what I think happened here. Like Lilia immediately thought that, oh no, so my usefulness will go down. You know, like if my only worth is being of help to Rudy, if that gets divided, then my worth will go down. You know, in front of everyone, people won't love me like everyone. So I think this needs to be resolved, and I don't know when this is going to resolve, or this, if this is ever going to get resolved. But hopefully this gets resolved, because I feel like Aisha needs to, I don't know, needs to understand and needs to know that her only worth isn't of being help to Rudy or doing the household chores. You know, she can be, and I'm sure, I'm definitely, like, you know, like as we saw, Rudy also wants that from her to think like that. But as we saw, Rudy multiple times tried to tell her that, you know, go to school, this is your life, I'm your brother, you know, like you don't have any type of obligations to me. She could never understand that, and she could never accept that, because that's literally how she has grown up. You know, so, you know, this is another thing, I don't know. Okay, after that, she goes and, like, you know, hugs Lilia, and, you know, that whole thing happens. And then everyone else, you know, like Elena Lee's, Geese and everyone says goodbye to them. And Elena Lee's in the end says that Roxy, sorry, Sylphie, just remember that Rudy loves you. And she leaves. And after that, Rudy turns back and he looks at Sylphie, and he's like, I need to talk to you about something. And Sylphie looks at Roxy. She immediately realized something probably happened, but she didn't know what exactly happened. So she was like, okay. So they sit down, start talking about it, and Rudy says like, oh, Roxy, you know, like I want to accept Roxy as a wife, and then everything was okay up until then. But then he says that, oh, like when I was going through stuff, Roxy, you know, did something, and it helped me, like, I don't know, like it helped me out in my time of need. And he like completely like bows in front of them, like flat on the ground, like, you know, in the like legs folded position. And you can see here like Sylphie's like face kind of contorts for a moment, like she kind of like scrunches, she feels sad, you know, but then they don't show anything else, and they immediately move on to Norn, where we get, and this is where Norn realizes what happened, and Norn gets up immediately. Like I said, here at first I was like, why are the kids here? But then I realized like, oh, I feel like bringing the kids, these two at least here, was necessary, at least in this type of situation. And then I changed my mind. I was like, you know what, if they kept it hidden from these two, I feel like that would have been way worse. So in the end I was like, you know what, it's fine, these two are here. But at first I was like, well, what the hell, these two are kids, why are they here, you know, and talking about this type of situation. But I'm like, you know what, no, if they kept them out of loop, That would have been way worse. So yeah. After that, here Non is like, wait, what? And Non just completely flips, and Non is like, I could understand like the dad's my dad's situation. You tried your best. I saw your hand completely, so I can understand that, and I even accept that. But you do have any idea how like Sylvie was waiting for you every single day, and you were just and you did something like this over there. Here we go. You had things so easy. You could spare time to take a new woman to bed. Um, so this whole thing, and here you can see Rudy's like, okay, you can blame me, but please don't try to blame Roxy, because Roxy's situation, you don't know what happened. What she did to bring me out of that. And like I said, this whole scene probably wouldn't make sense to a lot of, not make sense, but a lot of people would probably be like, what the hell, because the previous episode doesn't show a lot of the things, but at least me, after reading the summary from every single comment, I can understand what Rudy's trying to say here, because like I said, from the comments I got to know that it wasn't just a one day thing. This went on for a lot of days. Like Rudy literally, like as far as I've read, Rudy literally shut himself off, was almost going to do something to himself, and Roxy tried every single day to properly break him out of his shell and take him out of that dark part of his, out of his dark thoughts. And every single day she tried, failing every single day, Rudy not getting better. And then finally, I think she resorted to this, you know. But while in the anime, it was literally like Rudy was there, and one day she did all of that. That doesn't go like that, and that's why I think like a lot of people were angry, especially light novel readers. They were like, why did they just speed run through Rudy's whole like situation like that in one day? Something like that. Either way, but yeah, like I can understand what Rudy's trying to say here, that like what Roxy went through as well, you know. And this is also another thing I kind of appreciate in the end, which Roxy says like, yeah, I did it, and I wouldn't try to deny that I didn't have ulterior motives. I'm glad she said that, because it is true, I guess, in a way, that you know yeah. And then Sylvie also says that, well, obviously, like if you didn't have ulterior motives, I doubt anyone would have done something like that. So I, like I understand. I would have done the same. So at least she said something like that. That yeah, it wasn't. I wouldn't. At least she accepted that. Not accepted, but at least she said that yeah, like I had my ulterior motives. So all that stuff. Anyways, like I said, it's a whole messy situation. I just don't want to talk about it anymore. Really, I discussed about this plenty, and yeah. Okay. Anyways, so after that, that whole thing, like Norn is like going completely like just completely going off against Roxy, and Rudy's trying his best to so that Roxy doesn't get humiliated, but Roxy apologizes, and he's trying she tries to leave, and Rudy's like, what should I do? Like like I cannot, like like I love Sylvie, but at the same time I cannot see Roxy being you know like blamed like this, even though most of it was my fault. And when he couldn't say anything, like Sylvie gets up, stops Roxy, and she's like, wait, Roxy, let me talk to you. And and she says like, you know what, it's okay. Like, where's that part? She's like, and Roxy says, I wouldn't use that as an excuse. I had ulterior motives. And she's like, yeah, obviously, like like I think I would have done the same thing if I was in your shoes. And then she says, but and another thing, I kind of accepted something like this happening sooner or later, because Rudy's just like that, and I knew this was going to happen. But but like I said, I think like like I doubt Sylvie had this in mind. Sylvie definitely realized that in the future, Rudy would probably like get married to I think one or more two wives, and she would have been probably been okay with it as well. But the way this whole thing went was so messy that is just leaves such a bad taste in your mouth. Um, Either way, Sylvie's like, this part was pretty funny, but when she was like, "Oh, I'm like, this is Rudy we're talking about. I knew this was going to happen," and Norn is like looking at Rudy like this, like, the hell, like, she's baffled. She's like, what the hell? Anyways, um, okay, and then she says that, you know what, I also kind of expected it to be you because Rudy always was talking about it. She always talked about her master being this, her master being the only person, he would like respect in that way, like all that stuff he said. So, I was jealous. But now that I'm looking at you and seeing that you made a mistake like this, I could understand that you're just like me. So at least, like, yeah. And then she's like, you know what, I accept you. And she shakes hand with Roxy. And there you go. So after that, obviously Non hasn't been still able to accept the whole situation, which is perfectly normal. Obviously, Non is going off against Rudy, like swinging her sword, and this is where Sylvie's like, "Come on, like like your dad on himself had two wives, like yeah." And like I said, here I was thinking like, oh, Paul's situation was different, but then I realized that no, Paul's situation was even worse than Rudy's. What he did to Lilia was just, right. So I was like, yeah, you know what? At least Rudy's situation is not that bad because Paul was just like unhinged completely. Anyways, right after that, here you can see that Rudy, Sylvie's like, like expecting her kid after 1 month, and she's like, you could have had the ceremony, Roxy. But Roxy's like, no, I want like the child to be born first, then I'll get married to Rudy. And I think this was also a correct decision on Roxy's end because here's the thing: she has a lot of regrets with this whole situation, the way this went. So I think she, as a minimum way of showing respect, she's like, I cannot put my happiness before you. You were waiting for Rudy up until now, and Rudy came here, and so I would like want the child's birth to be before I get married to Rudy. I wouldn't put my happiness before you. Something like that. And I'm like, you know what, that's a good decision for Roxy. And there you go. After that, the child is born, like she looks exactly like Rudy. Like, the hair and everything, but her eyes are like Sylvie. And yeah. Yeah, she's born. And Rudy starts crying. Then later we see Rudy goes and visits Paul's grave, talks about Roxy, how he got married to Roxy. Wait a minute. Where's that part? Okay, Lucy. Lucy, I think that's her name. No, Lucy. Wait a minute. Lucy. Okay, so she says like I took like each syllable from my and Sylvie's name. So Rudy, she, Sylvie, she. I think no, Sylvie, she. Yeah. So Rushi, Ru for Rudy and she for Sylvie. Okay, Lucy. And obviously Lucy, it's Lu. See, yeah, Rudy is Ru, but R and L are, in Japanese, R and L are, very similar. So Rushi or Lucy, and Rudy and Sylvie. Okay, so Rushi grayed at, and she says I married Roxy as well, and there you go. Yeah. And he says like, like will probably make more mistakes in the future as well, but I'll keep going. And like I said this before as well, like I'm sure Rudy will have way more trouble in the future as well, and he'll probably have a lot of other situations like this, not exactly like this, but maybe something similar to this, and he'll probably make more mistakes, but he'll get up, and I can respect him for that. And this is another thing, like I said, I respect him for, is that he never repeats his mistakes. He makes some mistakes, he falls down, he gets back up then, and he makes sure he never repeats it, which is good, because which shows that like everyone makes mistakes, and different people have different degrees of how they make mistakes. The important thing is learning from your mistakes and make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think Rudy does that, and I can respect him for that. He never repeats his mistake. At least up until now, I haven't really seen him repeat any mistake. So that is good. And he grows from each and everything. Yeah, there you go, and that is where it ended. And here you can see there's a little scene in the while the credits are rolling, where we see what everyone is doing. We can see Zenoba, Julie, and this girl, I forgot her name, the new girl, Zenoba's caretaker. All of them, they're walking around on the cliff, and Elena Lee's over there together. Linnea and Pursena eating and watching stars. Nanahoshi looking at the stars. And then, oh, I just realized the bottle that she summoned, the flower was in it. That's cute. And then we had, this is the most unusual scene. I wasn't expecting to see something like this. Rigid and Badigadi together. So it seemed they had like some kind of beef against each other or something. So maybe not. Maybe, as Rigid said, they're just acquaintances or something. Who knows? They're walking together. We can see, I guess, journeying together now. And then we have Eris, and I'm guessing she's still continuing her training with Ghislaine. And you can see her hair is longer now. If you remember, she cut off her hair when she she went off, and now obviously a lot of years have passed. Her hair has gotten longer. And she has like a sword, like a falchion type of thing. So I wonder how strong she has gotten. I'm sure she's gotten extremely strong. And seeing this, I'm assuming she's definitely going to come back. Not sure if it's going to happen next season, in season 3, but she's definitely going to be back. And I can obviously see her getting married to Rudy as well. I'm like 100% sure now. Like, she's going to come back and she'll probably get married to Rudy as well. But hopefully it isn't as uncomfortable as the way this went. This was a whole complete messy situation. Okay, and I doubt that's going to repeat, because like I said, Rudy never repeats a mistake. And at this point, I feel like Rudy, Roxy, and Sylvie would be like, yeah, whatever. They would accept Eris as well. But I don't know how Eris will take it. I feel like Eris is going to... But you know what? Eris brought this upon herself. Not really at the same time, but she just like, who writes a letter like that? Like, what? Like, God damn it. Like, and because of her whole thing that she did, Rudy had a whole ED arc. Like, I just don't know. You know what? Whatever. Yeah, and then in the end we see the whole family looking out at the sky. And that's where it ended. And then in the end we see Mushoku Tensei season 3. Damn, that was a big discussion. I had to talk about a lot of things today, And yeah, so that is it. Yeah, I'm looking forward to season 3. Whenever that's going to come. So yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. This was my reaction to episode number 24 of Mushoku Tensei season 2. The final episode of the season. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to press the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, or you haven't subscribed. Comment down below anything you want to say, anything you want to let me know. I'll check them out. That is it, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next reaction video. A new anime will be replacing this, a new season of an anime. So see you guys then. Until then, goodbye and have a nice day.